Hey, welcome. This is John. It's Saturday. Wakeuporelse on a Saturday. Good to see familiar faces. It's good to be here. It's good to be with you guys. This is my therapy session. You guys are my sanity. You complete me. We're just out here on the fringe. We're trying to walk the walk and talk the talk. We're trying to escape the matrix and wrestle with being pleasing to God and fighting evil, getting along with our brethren. That's really what I feel like God wanted me to talk about tonight, and I want to get right into it. Normie-ism in the last days church. And the Christian walk is about like being pleasing to God, because he's infinitely greater than us, and we come to the knowledge that God is greater than us, and he deserves our devotion. He deserves a holy life lived well. And so we're striving to please him. But if you look at the Catholics will crawl on their knees for a mile to kiss the foot of Peter. They're striving to please God, or self-flagellating themselves, and all kinds of stuff like that. And not just Catholicism, it's in a lot of religions. Someone said religion is man reaching up to God, and Christianity is God reaching down to man. And it's a hard line to figure out, I've found, because the Bible even says, strive to enter into rest. I remember the first time I read that, I was like, how am I supposed to strive to enter into rest? It seems to be contradicting itself. So, hope everybody's still doing well. We're still alive. We're still, things are still on. Power's on. Food's in the stores. Who knows? We're all waiting for the shoe to drop on things, but they're definitely accelerating. Things are heating up. And I've got this book now. I just bought this book, Terra Infinita, the trilogy. So I'm going to be studying this. I do believe that there are lands beyond the ice wall. I can't prove it, but there's quite a bit of evidence. So I'm going to be talking about that in the near future. And I also bought this book, which is The Return of Jesus and Where Are We Now on the Biblical Timeline. It's $5 on Amazon. So this is a great resource. I saw Paul on Understanding Conspiracy talking about that. That gives you a nice workup of why you believe Satan's little season is right. I found that the people that don't want to accept it will just say, well, I have questions, but, well, aren't your questions sufficient to make you look into it further? I guess is my response. Anyway, it's an important topic, I think. Don't you guys think? I was in the church for 40 years and never dawned on me, or no one ever told me that might even be a possibility. James Noblio says, hello, weirdos. Yep. So, Normie-ism in the last days church. I also want to remind folks, you can download my books if you're new on both our websites, Wakeuporelse.com and alteredbible.com. You can download my books for free there. They are available on Amazon if you want a hard copy. Some do prefer that. If you'd like to support the work, you can send a check to John Kirwin. Don't make it to Wakeuporelse because I can't cash it. It's P.O. Box 78362, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28271. If the ministry's been a blessing, be a part of the Tucker family and tuck in something bankable, won't you? Please and thank you. There was a guy on the radio when I was coming up in the Lord 40 years ago. That's how he used to always say it. I still remember that. It's hilarious. All right. You can also go to wakeuporelse.com and click on the donate tab. We've got credit card, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. And I'll tell you what, the saints came through and I was able to pay all my bills yesterday. What a great moment in time that was. Wow. And I've got enough to pay for the rest of my dental bill, which is going to happen on Monday. All right, so Normie-ism in the last days church is quite the topic. So I'm basing it on some experience that I've had recently, and also these two passages kind of set the stage. First is Matthew 24:37. Before I read, let me just ask God for help. Lord, this is your church and your word, and we just thank you that we have this place to fellowship. We thank you for your presence being with us tonight. I ask you to open your word to us. Even though it's being fiddled with by the devil, Father, we still draw our sap for our bones from your word, and we're so grateful. And we thank you that you're speaking and guiding us in all that we do in Jesus' name. Hallelujah. All right, Matthew 24:37 is basically talking about Normie-ism. This is a normie passage. It's a prophecy that Normie-ism will be alive and well right up until the end. They said, what will the end days be like, Master? He said, but of that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels, but my Father. But as the days of Noah were, it's so Mandela affected, as it was in the days of Noah, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and given in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So will it be in 2020, 2025, or whatever, however long this lasts. Normies are going to be normies right up until the last minute. Because we think, surely if this happens and, aliens show up or giants come out of the underground bases, or, like if flat earth was actually admitted by the power structure, they will figure out some way to still be a normie, Susie. Somehow, DJ, they're going to stay normied up. It's unbelievable. That's what Jesus said. All right, and the other one is 2 Timothy 3:1. But know this, that in the last days perilous times will come, for men will be lovers of themselves. Now there's about 7 or 8 characteristics of people in the last days that I am suggesting are attributes that I'm seeing exhibited within the Christian truther community. Boasters, proud, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, headstrong, and haughty. So how does this Normie-ism paradigm manifest itself in the Christian truther community? Well, one example, I believe, is what seems to me to be a very sort of a superficial spiritualization of how Christians should interact with geopolitical issues. If Christian truthers are talking about Trump, for instance, you'll see people saying things like, well, I don't follow a man, I follow Christ. And I don't put my trust in a man. Okay, well, what the Bible teaches us, or what does that mean? This is what I wrote. This is a Facebook post. Anything but following Christ is pro-Satan. And I'm like, what does that mean? This was a response on a Facebook post to this meme here. The meme on the Facebook post that started this conversation, it says, facts are facts. Being pro-Trump equals being pro-Satan. Once you see the deception. So I sort of see these hyper spiritualizations as being very misleading. It sounds noble and devout, but that's not how the realm and the kingdom of God works. Because this idea, I'm just going to trust Christ and not trust a man, is devoid of understanding of how God places people in positions of power. Here, Daniel 2:21. And he changeth the times and the seasons. He removes kings and he sets up kings. He gives wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. God is moving the chess pieces around in our world. So to say, I don't trust in a man, I trust in Christ, is unbiblical. It's superficial and it's just religious talk. Jesus is my Lord, Trump is my president. They're not mutually exclusive. I can put all my trust in Christ for what's going to happen to me and to this world, and I can then simultaneously exert my influence in local, state, national, and even international politics. So this statement, I don't trust a man, I just trust Christ, really is a withdrawing of a willingness to participate as an influencer. And Jesus taught against this kind of cloistered existence, this withdrawing yourself from society. He said, you're the salt of the earth. You're the light of the world. A city that's set on a hill cannot be hid. So it seems like if Jesus is telling us that we're the salt of the earth, that he wants us to be like salt to the inhabitants of the earth. Salt preserves from decay. He wants us to hold back the evil of the world. And salt also enhances the flavor. He wants us to effect change. So either the church is affecting the world or the world's infiltrating the church. But either way, we're not to run away from them because they're in the world. Being salt means you're participating in the healing of the world, not abandoning it. And it's also irrelevant if Trump is secretly a wicked president, because I'm commanded to pray for leaders in 1 Timothy 2. I exhort, therefore, that first of all, supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings, and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life. Not publicly cursing our duly elected president, but praying for him. That seems to sort of go the other direction, doesn't it? So I read that meme and I thought, why does this meme rub me the wrong way? It's not that I'm a Trump supporter in the normie sense, because I'm not. So I decided to read some more of the comments that I think were from Christians, and I found myself getting even more agitated as I read what was being said. One person said, "Amen. Let the world have their world, and we'll go with God." Amen, sister. Let the world have their world, and we'll go with God. If you're with Trump, you're with Satan. Well, this just seems like Christian passivity to me, or Christian fatalism. It's like a false devotion or a false separation and consecration, because to me it just seems like cowardice. It's disguised in religious robes. Here's what I believe God would prefer that we're like. All right, Proverbs 31:8. Open your mouth for the dumb, the earthlings, in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. See, let the world have their world is not biblical. Biblical is open your mouth to the world in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. Engage, Bob, engage. Micah 6:8, he hath showed thee, O man, what is good. And what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk, not to decouple from society. We're not of the world, but we're in the world, and we're supposed to be salt to the world. Romans 12:21, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So how does this line up or jive with the Facebook posts? Let the world have their world and we'll go with God. Or I don't follow Trump, I follow Christ. What does that mean? Are you going to go live in a monastery? Well, then I made the mistake of commenting, and I don't like talking about Trump because so many people are so agitated and triggered regarding him. And the thing that I am agitated by is how people talk like they absolutely know exactly what's happening. Right? But then you've got things like this, where we know we don't know what's happening. Here's a video I just saw today.
A white helicopter. And this is the picture of the helicopter when they pulled it up out of the Hudson River. Here's the top of it. It's black, and the bottom of it.
Okay, so for those listening on the podcast, we're looking at a picture of the helicopter that just crashed in the Hudson, and it's clearly white on the top and black on the bottom. And there's the picture of the family that supposedly died. And then when they pull it out of the Hudson, the helicopter is all black. So that whole helicopter thing was staged. And this is our life. This is our existence here in this realm. It's just like we have no idea how deep the rabbit hole goes. What's fake, what's real. But as a content creator, talking about Trump, for me, takes more courage than talking about the Bible changes or revival and miracles in Toronto or any of that stuff. I'll be more persecuted for talking about Trump than anything. But God's just keeps directing me, so I'm just being obedient. Then I couldn't help myself. And then, of course, here I am talking about him again on a live stream, which will invite more ridicule and berating from people that never bother to listen to what I'm really saying. Well, if I did care what people think, I'd still be married, right? And then my kids would respect me because I'd be normal. But if you're here, you're listening to me, you're not normal. I'm not normal, and neither are you normal. It's not normal to be a truther. Dad, I wish you were normal. Being normal means you comply with the rules. It means you buck the system. You don't comply with the rules. You buck the system. You refuse to be pushed into a mold any longer. You resist peer pressure. You think for yourself. Your thoughts are your own. You don't believe what you're told any longer. And you don't fear man. You have integrity. You question things that before you didn't question. You become aware also in different topics that there seems to be a herd mentality toward a certain topic that doesn't seem right somehow. So you start looking for the flaws. And what I'm here tonight is to refuse to comply with the rules of the Christian truther community regarding Trump. There is an enormous amount of inertia that goes against anyone that dares to inject any hope into the community. Hope and faith that God might be doing something good is looked upon as weakness and naivete. It's looked upon as being unbiblical. And if you persist in believing that God wants to do something good, you will be branded as a shill for not continuously prophesying doom and gloom. Many are much more turned on by the morose than the moral, and they prefer doom to deity, and the Bible warns against that inclination. Warns against it. In Proverbs 18:8, it talks about the words of a gossip are like choice morsels or dainties. People much prefer death and destruction than God's going to deliver us. The Christian truther community seems to have a sort of shark feeding frenzy feeling to it. We're assuming the worst is a virtue. Quickly rebuking people is the default response. It seems as a badge of honor for people to leap into any topic and suggest that evil is what is causing it. Evil is the end result. Evil rules everyone and everything. And God is completely impotent, handcuffed. He's completely disinterested and angry, and he's stormed off to the throne to let Satan have his way with us. He's completely uninterested in intervening in any way, even though he's done it many, many times before. And frankly, I'm starting to think that this hyper-conspiratorialism and lack of any awareness of the goodness of God is a narrative that has co-opted the truther community. Satan's biggest lie is convincing people that he doesn't exist. It's not that. It's convincing people that good doesn't exist. And as a result, they stop trying. One of the quotes I saw on the Facebook thing was, "I don't vote." Well, why? Because you think that that's giving your allegiance to the system? I don't believe that the central planners are all powerful. And I do believe that if people hadn't voted, we would have gotten Kamala. So you prefer that? I don't. That doesn't make me a Trump supporter. It just makes me to love eating. I like having a roof, and I like not being in a camp and dead. I'm not suggesting that Trump is here to save us. I'm saying that the God that I serve has a habit of sending deliverers and revival when his people that are called by his name and humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways promises that he will heal our land. That doesn't make me a Trump supporter. And possibly the fact that Trump did stack the Supreme Court with conservative majority and as a result overturned Roe versus Wade, maybe that was enough for the courts of heaven to say, "Let it be so. Now I will deliver them from their bondage. They have turned as a nation from baby murder." And so I'm suggesting that there may be a lot of Christian truthers that are woefully underestimating God's goodness. The rhetoric among Christian truthers regarding Trump doesn't seem very different than the people in the world to me that are absolutely out of control, and this ought not to be. I mean, do you really think that you completely understand all the moves that are being made when we are in the beginning of a global financial reset and a global shift of power I've never seen anything close to this happen? And if you truly step back and evaluate the things that are being put in place, there's 10 times the indicators that things are being implemented for good and freedom and prosperity than you do that they're moving us towards evil. 10 times more. Now, does that make me a Trump supporter and means I'm blind? No. It makes me a truther. I'm resisting the inertia of the narrative that people that are rabid Trump haters are in the know. On the last live stream, I talked about Trump and I said I went back and listened to it. 5 different times, I'm not a Trump supporter, and I still got posts saying, "I can't believe you're a Trump supporter. How could you be so blind?" So listen very carefully. At this point, I, John Kirwin, do not believe he's a good guy that wants to make America great again. I think there is an evil agenda that he is knowingly complicit with. But the difference between me and many listening to me right now is that I believe it's possible that he's a good guy and wants to make America great again. And that's because of the evidence that presents itself in that direction. And what I'm finding as I'm challenging people is that when I show them the evidence, they don't want it to be true. They try to minimize it. They try to change the subject, just like a normie does. I know Pam Bondi is now immediately arresting people that are scratching Tesla cars, but we've heard nothing about Epstein or Diddy lists being arrested, or Hillary, or the J6 panel, or the congressmen and senators that are receiving all the money from USAID, and 10 other things that we should be hearing arrests about. Can't say for sure, but there definitely seem to be a few members of Trump's cabinet that show up on the EGI sites, that's elite gender inversion, as being inverts, and some of them are pretty convincing. So I'm not a Trump supporter, I'm a truth supporter, but I don't like being bullied by people that have an unprovable theory about Trump. And they want to lord over me like I'm an idiot because I'm pointing out obvious evidence to the contrary. There's lots of reasons to doubt the Trump show, but the difference between myself and many listening to me is I think it's improbable that the white hat narrative isn't some sort of rope-a-dope, right? It's some sort of false light narrative that's so complex, it's mind-boggling, but it is possible. And what that does is it gives me pause to rake people over the coals if they have a different view. But even if I suggest that, a lot of Christian truthers will unsubscribe and decide that I'm incapable of understanding and connecting the dots. So obviously I can't listen to you anymore. Well, a lot of people connected the dots incorrectly on Trump, in my opinion, regarding Operation Warp Speed, thinking because he did that, he was pro-vax, and it turned out it looks very obvious that that was his only play to stop the permanent lockdown, which they were on track to do. We need another 6 months of lockdown. That's when Operation Warp Speed was implemented, and it broke that narrative, short-circuited it, that we had to stay locked down. So if that's true, you're listening to me, you're only free and alive right now because of Trump, if that's true. And you misread the dots on that one. Maybe Trump's so-called conversion to Judaism is just a head fake to the central planners to make them think he's aligned with them, to stop them from some scorched earth move that they were about to implement that you know nothing about. And he needed more time to implement what clearly appears to be unfolding right now. What clearly is unfolding before you is a worldwide plan to eliminate the control of the central planners. Not what may happen, that's what is happening. Now, if there's some greater nefarious agenda that will accomplish, okay, but that's not what's actually happening right now. And because I'm a truther, I have to take that in and evaluate that. And people talk like they know everything when they can't possibly know everything. Like the Noahide laws are not laws, by the way. They are non-binding resolution that has been endorsed by every president since 1991, including Trump, but they still haven't acted on them in 33 years. So if you started talking about how Trump's a shill because of the Noahide laws, well, what if you were talking about that 33 years ago? How ridiculous would that sound now? So everyone is so convinced that Trump's a bad actor because of the Noahide laws, but they've been dormant for 33 years. So you don't know that that's going to be, basically everything he's doing is in the other direction, as I'm going to show you, from implementing the Noahide laws. They're absolutely a danger. I'm going to do a talk on them, and I'm listening to all these people talk about it, and it's terrifying. But all of the evidence around Trump and Noahide has to be reconciled with everything he's doing in the opposite direction from anything like that, which is 10 times greater than the evidence that he's a bad actor. So I'm not going to be intimidated by anyone that is going to act like a normie and rise up like a rabid dog against opposing facts, logic, and reason. That's what normies do. And you know, God's people have been surprised by God's deliverance many times in the past. God saved his people unexpectedly, like Exodus 14. The Israelites were trapped at the Red Sea, and they thought they were done for. And God surprised them by allowing them to cross over on dry land. Or Gideon in Judges 7. Gideon only had this army of 300, and they were vastly outnumbered by the Midianites. And then they were surprised when God orchestrated a victory through unconventional means. He caused confusion among the enemy camp. And then you also have Peter's release from prison, Acts 12. The people that were praying for him to get out of prison didn't even recognize the fact that their prayers were being answered. So if you look at Kim Clement's prophecy, what it said, God said, I will fool the people. I will fool the people. They will say he has hot blood, but I will make him a praying president. Maybe that's true. Maybe you've been fooled because you say that Trump's evil and he's got hot blood. Should we invest in Trump coin? No, I wouldn't. It's not in financial advice, but that, like I said, you have reasons why you doubt him, and I have 10 times the amount why there might be something good happening. 10 times. I see your coin, and I'll raise you 5 other things why things are good. I don't need Trump to be a Christian or to be some paragon of virtue to have my support. That's very idealistic. But have you ever seen any president talk like what I'm about to show you, either pretending it or reading it from a prompter and it means nothing to them, or actually from the heart?
Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be complete. We are blessed to live in a land of faith where all things are possible. Our only limits are those we place on ourselves. So true.
Imagine anybody in the previous presidents talking like this, or how about this one?
Prayer changes hearts and transforms
Hold on.
lives. Jesus wants to be Lord of your life.
All right. So have you ever heard any president in your entire life stand in front of a microphone and say, Jesus wants to be the Lord of your life? Now, I know people are apoplectic that I'm so gullible that I could be believing him. I'm not saying that. I've just asked you a simple question. In your entire life, have you ever seen a president stand in front of a microphone as the president and say, Jesus wants to be the Lord of your life? I mean, I gotta consider that, as a play, that they are taking the deception to a whole nother level, which is what you'd have to believe. It's just talk, or it's an unprecedented event in the history of humanity. I will fool the people. I will fool the people. They will say he has hot blood. All I'm saying is, as a truther, you just need to keep your options open. You can be certain about your position without having a triggered normie response to others who may not agree with you. When you watch liberals talk, they don't have opinions. They just repeat talking points. And it almost seems like with some Christian truthers, when it comes to Trump, they have a similar kind of a response. Like, you can't reason with them. All I've ever done for the last 8 years is just try to talk about what I'm experiencing, my journey, and I found that usually a lot of other people are feeling the same thing. So I hope this daring adventure I'm on is helping someone, right? So as I read this meme, this first thought that came to me was, if this person that posted this meme, if you're with Trump, you're with Satan, if they're a follower of Christ, I mean, I could be wrong, but I just felt like somehow, even if they are right, they're somehow wrong. I'm sure they believe they're contending for the faith. But Proverbs 21:2 says this: every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord ponders the hearts. Here's the Mandela corrected version from my memory. All of a man's ways seem right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the motives. That's what I remember. So I understand that the gospel is to be proclaimed. So there's no debate component when you preach the gospel. There's no apologies for speaking the truth. This is the 10 commandments, right? It's not the 10 suggestions. And so God calls us to speak the truth without fear or favor of man. However, the scriptures do teach us that we are to speak the truth in love. And that's Ephesians 4:11. And I won't read the whole thing, but all the way at the bottom, for whom the whole body joined knit together, as every joint supplies, according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causes growth of the body for the edifying of itself in love. That's not it. Oh, here it is. In the cunning craftiness and deceitfulness plotting, but speaking the truth in love may grow up in all things. So, old Paul here is reminding us that God will appoint certain people that have certain gifts to come along and help us, right? They'll equip us to be more effective and to bear fruit for eternity. But he's also reminding us that our proclamation message needs to always be tempered with grace and love. If that component is lacking, then it's not the Spirit of Christ. So your correspondence, your speaking to people, should have the result of equipping, according to Ephesians 4, edifying. It should bring people into unity, speaking the truth in love, joining people, knitting people together, causing growth. So if the result of your communication is death and destruction, it shouldn't tear people down and dominate people or cancel people, rebuking them and demeaning them with finality, just leaving them dead on the floor, right? Something's wrong with your perception of how God would have you to be interacting with people. I mean, the Mormon guy even got it right. The guy that wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he was a Mormon. But one of them was, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And then James chapter 1 encourages us by saying, therefore, beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. So in our interactions, the Bible teaches us that we should always be working to remain approachable at the end of our interaction, if it's at all possible. That's what it says. If at all possible, be at peace with all men. Now, remember when I was first saved and I would be talking to someone that had like New Age beliefs, or they were an atheist or something, and I would end up getting agitated with them and it would devolve into an argument. And when I would walk away, I was like, well, that doesn't work. I was like, this is not working. If I'm trying to win them to Christ, I'm almost in a fist fight with them. I'm going to always try to remember to control my impulses, Lord, and not get flushed with emotion, try to protect my ego, and all of the impure motives that will pollute what God really values, which is people. So I always told my kids when I was still parenting them, people are more important than things. And I think maybe some people have lost touch with their burden for souls. Like they've forgotten what it's like to be a sinner. I mean, when's the last time you won somebody to the Lord or even witnessed to somebody? Because God is very particular about how we treat people. We have to give an account for every idle word and all that. 2 Timothy 2:24, and the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach, not resentful. So these are as a Christian truther in the truther community, 2 Timothy 2:24 is your rules of engagement. Don't veer off from this. You're not to be quarrelsome. And you're supposed to be kind to everyone. Not posting things like, if you're with Trump, you're with Satan, you baby killer. James tells us, if any man says he's religious, but he doesn't bridle his tongue, his faith is in vain. James said your faith is in vain if you're a rude, abrasive Christian that regularly cuts people off at the knees if they dare to disagree with you. Maybe you could try saying something like, hey man, it seems maybe like, or maybe I'm wrong, but, or I think I see it differently than you, but not if you're with Trump, you're with Satan. It's really bad. It's really bad. I mean, if you're preaching the gospel, it's different. There's no disclaimers. It's a take it or leave it offer. And that comes through to the sinner. The sinner senses that you're not begging them, you're telling them. Maybe I'm not saying what I'm trying to say, but all I'm saying is if you truly are walking with Jesus, there's not going to be a trail of dead Christian bodies behind you. Blessed is the peacemaker. Well, we're not supposed to have anything to do with the deeds of darkness, but rather to expose them. So is that all that Jesus ever did? All he did was expose the deeds of darkness. That's it. No. We have a mission to restore people to God. That's paramount. And you see this described in 2 Corinthians 5:16. Therefore, from now on, we regard no one according to the flesh, even though we've known Christ according to the flesh, yet now we know him thus no more longer. I hate the Mandela effect. Therefore, if anyone's in Christ, he's a new creation. Old things have passed away. All things of God, who has reconciled us to himself through Jesus Christ. And then what? He has given us the ministry of reconciliation. Everyone listening to me has been given the ministry of reconciliation. This is a prime directive that is an overarching expectation that God has for each one of his children. This is always looking over our shoulder as the voice of conscience to urge you, stay in the love of God, daughter. Stay in the love of God, son. Love your neighbor as yourself. Just as Christ reconciled man to God, we are then to be his hands and his feet in this fallen world. Jesus did not come to condemn the world, but to save it. And so 1 John 2:26 says, he who says he abides in him ought also to walk as he walked. So I think that we should reserve our scathing rebukes for the extreme pharisaical vipers when they present themselves, not the rank and file believer. I mean, when I look at Jesus, how he rolled generally, he was usually kind and patient with sinners and his disciples. I mean, he got mad at them when they didn't have faith to tell the storm, and he got upset sometimes, but mostly he only blasted the Pharisees, and even then when they provoked him. I mean, he met with Nicodemus, right? So we're the kingdom of heaven is a kingdom of love that's a kingdom at war. There is a war, but there's a war with rules of engagement, and the rule is love. No love, you're out of bounds. And as far as Trump, I understand the Hegelian dialectic, the externalization of the hierarchy, the false light narrative, and how they have bamboozled us into going along with our slavery our entire lives. So we're all kind of ticked off and jaded. But what we're watching is very, very different. I mean, I'm really struggling with Trump, and I don't believe I'm alone. Okay. The unimaginable scope and the pace of good that is being rolled out is mind boggling. None of us have ever seen anything like this before. So just for a minute, okay, try to just set aside all the things that you can point to as reasons not to trust any of it, right? I understand most of the reasons that you have to doubt Trump or any of this. And forget about Elon. Elon is a prop and is fake and is impossible. But what you don't know is who's running the prop. Maybe the prop was being run by evil, but now it's being taken over by forces of good. This is what the good news truthers are telling us for 6 years. And the problem that you have is that all of the things that they have said were going to happen are now happening. The Sarah, the quantum financial system, many of the things that they've said were going to happen are happening. And I'm sorry if that makes you mad. But I'm a truther, which means I don't care what you think. I understand that GovCo has never given us any reason to believe that they exist to serve us. I mean, the word government is a compound word. It means to govern or control, meant to think. So it's a mind control organization. For the love of heaven. Let me go back on the screen here. All right, but if you just look at the wholesale vanquishing of evil that's going on right now, here and globally, if you're a moral human being, I mean, it would seem to me that you have to be rejoicing at some level that these things are happening. The reversal of debauchery and graft and corruption and tyranny, and especially the perversion in the schools. How many times have you watched the parents stand up in the school board meeting and read the books that are in the libraries that their kindergartners have access to? And then the board members will say, "Oh, you can't say that in public." And they're like, this is what you're allowing my kids to have access to. Well, all that's going out. And I'm not going to apologize for being very happy about that. And I take issue with being told if I'm for that, then I'm with Satan. I don't think so. I think you're with Satan. Don't those things make you happy? You may respond by saying, yeah, but what about this over here? No, I asked you first, okay? Does it make you happy that perversion and DEI and wokeism is being routed out of the schools? Yes or no? Yeah, I guess it does. See, that's not being a truther. If you respond like that, you're not in the truth. You are not operating out of your own program if you respond like that. Isn't it understandable, though, if you are like that many of your brothers and sisters may be feeling a little ambivalent and maybe a bit confused right now because they're sort of skeptical like you are, but they see all of this flood of good things happening. And they're trying to formulate their view. I know there's people listening to me that are feeling that. So if you're a rabid Trump-hating Christian truther, I'm just suggesting that you may want to cut some people some slack, because it's not like there isn't a lot of conflicting information against your position. I have 10 times as much evidence that we're moving towards good and prosperity and freedom than you have that we're going the other direction. 10 times. But as I said, I agree with you. I think that there is a hidden agenda. You also have to remember, if you're so convinced that Trump's a shill and this and that, that people may not be at the same level of leaving the matrix as you are. Maybe you are really tuned in, but a lot of people aren't where you are. So just be the person that's reaching down to pull people up, not slapping them down as they're trying to crawl out of the matrix. I'm getting out. No, you don't know like I do. Bam! Under these false light narratives, they orchestrate the bad, like 9/11, only to give you the Patriot Act. So they do the bad, and just so they can bring in the good to enslave you. And the good, in this case would be Trump, that they're bringing in is designed to get you to accept the bad that comes with the good. They get you to accept your slavery, and they've gotten us to love our slavery. But a lot of what Trump's show is doing is not enslaving us. I'm sorry, it's not. If Trump forces government and companies to remove the drag queen story time and the DEI trans bathroom debauchery out of society, there's no way to spin that as somehow being bad. Not in my universe. That is good. That is not the Patriot Act that only seems good, but it's actually bad. I'm going to get so hammered for this, but I don't care. People say, well, Trump is going to bring us into the New World Order. Well, not if he got us out of the World Health Organization, which he did in 2020. He got us out of the Paris Climate Accord and NAFTA, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and UNESCO, which is a cesspool. He's ending the endless and massive amounts of foreign aid that isn't foreign aid. It's graft and corruption and funds tyranny. This is the title of an executive order. He signed 111 executive orders already, implementing the president's Department of Government Efficiency Cost Efficiency Initiative. I don't know what we're watching. Some rope-a-dope, some show that has nothing to do with our freedom and prosperity, but it's possible that it is. Absolutely possible. Pointing RFK as health czar. They're killing us with food. It is so bad. And that seems to be being reversed. I'm not sure if RFK is an EGI, but we'll look into that. Closing the education department seems awesome. Closing the border and deporting illegals seems really awesome. So if I'm for that, am I for Satan? If you're let the world stay with the world, I'm with God. Okay, so does that mean you want the borders open? Because Trump's closing the borders. You guys with me? You go okay with fentanyl being flooding into the country? Another executive order is restoring truth and sanity to American history. I love that one. Stop pulling the statues over and rewriting our history. This one's really good. No more District of Columbia. I could spend 3 live streams talking about what that means. 3! Because I was in the legal education movement, and the District of Columbia is a 10 square mile radius where they control this whole mind game of ensnaring us in all of these legal. I'll give you an example. The District of Columbia overlays the zip codes across the map of the United States, and then they trademark the zip codes. And then they assume that if you use the zip code in your mailing, then you're contracting with them. Oh yeah, it's that bad. So people in the legal education movement won't use a zip code, or they'll say near, and then they'll put the zip code in brackets because that's a legal maneuver to tell you that it's not part of the contract. So you're denying its efficacy against you. Well, Trump just dropped an atom bomb on all of that, and by changing it to Washington, the city of Washington. That one thing is beyond words of what that means. So if I'm excited about that, if that is moving me towards freedom and not towards a new world order, not towards tyranny, does that mean I'm with Satan? I don't think I am. Protecting the integrity of American elections. That's another executive order. Ending lawfare. There's about 6 executive orders that are ending the lawfare. Addressing risks from Jenner and Block is one of them. So these are the law firms that are engaging in lawfare. All right. And then, of course, tariffs, which are proven to work, and all of the little arguments against them, only time will tell, but all of that money that will be coming in will potentially allow him to eliminate the IRS, and you won't have to pay income taxes. And all kinds of other benefits. So America was being deindustrialized for the last 20, 30, 40 years. They wanted to turn the U.S. into a third world country. And unless what this guy is doing right now, whether he's a shill or not, if this wasn't happening, we were done. If Kamala was in, it would have been the end. So for whatever this is, whatever this Trump show is all about, it has stopped the slide into destruction temporarily. So here's 2 executive orders. Immediate measures to increase American mineral production and immediate expansion of American timber production. Now, I reject the idea that these are just fake and there's nothing happening. That's hyper-conspiratorialism that I don't embrace. I believe that these are actually happening. Continuing the reduction of the federal bureaucracy, establishment, so that's another EO. Continuing the reduction of, I had somebody that was trying to defend the fact that these poor people are being fired. I'm like, excuse me? There's over 2 million people that are employed by the U.S. government, either directly or through contractors. The top 9 zip codes in the United States per capita earning, 10 of them, 9 of them are in and around Washington. I'm sorry, but these people will have to go find gainful employment. Of course, we have a shift right now that is taking place. It's no longer a conspiracy. It's now happening. A currency reset. And my understanding that there was 2 different ones. One was run by the evil guys, and then there was another one that was going to be run by the good guys. 2 different timelines, if you could say that. And the implementation or the establishment of the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the United States digital asset stockpile. I listened to Catherine Austin Fitts. I listened to all of these very high-end superheroes in the economic world. And they have very strong concerns about what's happening, but nobody knows. I love this EO, designating English as the official language of the United States. You go to other countries and they don't cater to foreigners like this corrupt liberal government has for the last 50 years, where we're just turning over our culture and our country to become a third world country. ending procurement of forced use of paper straws. I love that one. That one was really good because I was like looking at California banning gas stoves and also wood fires. They're banning wood fire stoves, banning cows. Can't collect water on your own property. Aren't you sick of stuff like this? Well, he's getting rid of it. So does that make me a Trump supporter? No, not in the sense of a normie who's all in and drank the Kool-Aid. I'm a slave to the facts, and these are what's happening. So, how do you reconcile that? Well, you only have assumptions about where this is all going. But what I'm pointing at is happening. Another EO is protecting the Second Amendment rights. Another one is establishing the White House Faith Office. Now, he's not, I know he appointed Paula White, which is a very bad choice for a lot of reasons, but it may just be that Trump is naive. He's a baby Christian, or he's just naive about her problems. Let's just say that. Doctrinal issues, her ties with Israel. She's like, we shouldn't be converting the Jews. We should be learning from them. So obviously not happy with Paula White, but he's not. I mean, have you seen London? And they have like 10, 15 cities that have Muslim mayors. So he's not establishing the White House Office of Muslim Faith. It's Christian faith. Here, this is a name of an executive order that Trump implemented. It's eradicating anti-Christian bias. That's the name of the executive order. And this is what it says. It is the policy of the United States and the purpose of this order to protect the religious freedoms of Americans and end the anti-Christian weaponization of government. Okay, so you have the 33-year-old Noahide, not laws, they're a resolution. It's a non-binding resolution that's 33 years and nothing is ever. That's sitting out there, and that's what a lot of people are basing a lot of their fear of Trump on, because that always comes up. But at the meantime, you have him putting executive orders right now into place where he's protecting Christians. So I'm sorry if you think I'm stupid and naive, but this is what's happening. I love this one, reevaluating and realigning United States foreign aid. That's an executive order. Defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. I watch, what's his name, debating people on college campuses and even in Senate hearings. Please tell us the definition of a woman. And they'll just say, oh, I don't know. Or they'll be like, blah, 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 and they just absolute madness. And the Trump show is saying enough. Let me read this title of this executive order again. Defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. Thank you. If that doesn't make you happy as a Christian, then I think you have an agenda. And it doesn't necessarily make you a Trump supporter in the sense of a normie who's drank the Kool-Aid. I'm listing all the reasons why you shouldn't believe in him, but I'm also listing the things that he's doing right now that are evidence against those other conspiracies. Designating cartels and other organizations as foreign terrorist organizations and specially designated global terrorists. I love this one. This is an executive order. Restoring freedom of speech and ending federal censorship. So he didn't come in and start rounding up conservatives and censoring us. He's doing the opposite. He's implementing freedom for Christians, and he's implementing an end to censorship. And you saw Zuckerbrod clone, the Zuckerbrod robot came on camera and he did a mea culpa. Facebook is now no longer going to be fact checking conservatives. We're going to only focus on what's absolutely illegal. Well, do I love Satan because of that? No, I don't think I do. I think I'm very happy about that. I think maybe this will extend my ability to do things because of the Trump show. If you're with Trump, you're with Satan. That's what the meme said. Well, I have to differ. I mean, just being with Trump is what's at issue. What does that mean? Does it mean I'm not allowed to be happy that these things are happening? This is another executive order, withdrawing the United States from and ending funding to certain United Nations organizations and reviewing United States support to all international organizations. So as Christian truthers flailing and telling us that Trump is leading us into death and destruction, he's getting us out of all of the organizations that would carry that out. While you're saying that, he's doing this. And it's another one, a plan for establishing a United States sovereign wealth fund, which is going to bless you financially. Well, no, it'll put us on a universal income and then a social credit score. Well, do you know that to be true, or is that your assumption? Because that's not what he's saying. It's not what he's doing right now. So it's the difference between cynicism and skepticism. Okay, skepticism judges someone by what they do. Cynicism judges someone by their motives. But you don't know what that is. You only know what they're doing. This is another name of an executive order that he implemented in the last 60 days. Unleashing prosperity through deregulation. Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling. So if I'm for ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling, then I'm with Satan? JC, Seed of Life, says Trump is a road to nowhere fast. Well, not if he's implementing all of these things, JC, Seed of Life. He is a road to prosperity and freedom very fast. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Reinstating service members discharged under the military's COVID-19 vaccination mandate. Okay, here's a beauty. This is the name of an executive order. Enforcing the Hyde Amendment. Now, the Hyde Amendment blocked any tax dollars from paying for abortions, but it wasn't being enforced. So this executive order requires the Hyde Amendment to be enforced. So then your tax dollars won't be used to pay for people's abortions. And then I'm being lectured that if I'm for Trump, then I'm for Satan. Restoring names that honor American greatness. Initial rescissions of harmful executive orders. Okay, this executive order undid about 50 previous executive orders that harmed you. So you can say Trump is a short road to destruction. You can say that he's going to bring us into the New World Order, but everything that he's doing says the opposite. So as a truther, I'm on guard, my head's on a swivel, but I'm not with you on ignoring this avalanche of good that's taking place. I'm not with you. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm going to be happy about it unapologetically. This is another executive order, removing barriers to American leadership in artificial intelligence. Okay, this is one that a lot of people are seizing on that is proof that he's a bad actor. But if you realize what you're up against, it's if you don't do it, the other countries will. And if you are a good actor, you can position yourself to be the dominant player and possibly avoid the existential threat of AI. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm telling you that's a possibility. Ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. So some of the government agencies were spending as much as 50% of their budgets on DEI programs, and that's being eliminated. And I'm here to ask you, doesn't that make you happy? Do you like that? Do you love having to work yourself to death and pay taxes while they send tens of billions of dollars a month to who knows who for who knows what? I like that he's ending that. I like it a lot. Does that make me a Trump supporter? Not in the sense of a normie where I've drank the Kool-Aid. Does that mean that I'm slipping into naivete and being seduced into a trance and that I should be rebuked because I can't connect the dots? Does it mean I'm becoming unconscious of all of the things that seem to prove that he's working for the enemy? And therefore, I deserve to have you lecture me that if I'm not for Trump, I'm for Satan? I mean, would Satan implement all of these things I just mentioned? It's very similar to the voices that wanted to try to disparage Toronto. But whenever I asked them, well, how do you explain the fact that I saw 20-something testimonies every service I went to? What church service have you ever seen 20 testimonies? I mean, real ones, people with miracles and deliverances. I had migraines for 20 years and I came here 2 months ago and I was on the floor for a week and now I have no migraines. Next, and one after another. What's your explanation for that? Well, I don't have one. Okay, this is sort of like the same. What we're watching is so weird and unprecedented that it defies description. I mean, a lot of people, me included, love Trump and how he's wild and unpolitical. He's very cavalier. He doesn't talk like a politician. He's abrasive. He's hilarious. And he's rolling over the bully mind control media. We love how he's bowed up to the media. I do. And his press secretary is awesome. I mean, she might be a guy, an invert. I don't know. She might be a reptilian. I don't know. But I'm loving the show. I mean, you'd have to be the way he is to do what he's doing. But when you add Elon into the mix, who is obviously not who we're being told he is. His rockets are as fake as could be. His ability to run all these things is impossible. He's parading his kid around on his shoulders, just acting giddy and just really weird. You know, it's just so weird. The whole thing is so weird. It's really hard to take it in. But it's not like we got Kamala in there, who would be a known quantity, right? With Kamala, you have no good things happening on the surface and then a lot of diabolical stuff underneath the surface. Whereas with Trump, you have a large number of incredibly good things on the surface, which I just shared a few of them with, and then some bad things on the surface, and then it appears as though you also have diabolical stuff under the surface. We know that a lot of the people that you see in Washington are actors. Literally. I mean, they have IMDb profiles. Kamala Harris has an IMDb profile. I think Trump has a star on the Walk of Fame. And so there's a lot of people wearing masks. There's two different versions of people. We have pictures of, there's two Bidens, there's two Hillarys, there's two Viviks, there's two Elons, there's multiple Trumps. We're like, what am I watching? A lot of them are gender inverts. A lot of the stories we're being told are fake. We've all seen the crisis actors in the news, the CNN green screens, the ISS on wires, fake wars. Last night I watched the movie Wag the Dog with Dustin Hoffman, where they have the president gets into a scandal, so they bring in a Hollywood producer because he's 11 days. They got to get through 11 days, and then he'll be elected the president again. So they bring in this guy, and they create a fake war with actors, and I'm sitting there going, this is exactly what they're doing to us. So I saw Trump supposedly converted to Judaism. I've seen the video of him with Knights of Columbus robe doing the Masonic handshake. I've seen him quote the Kabbalah in his book. His 12 bankruptcies. Some people think the real Trump died in 1989. There's definitely more than one Trump. And then Melania, I'm not really sure about Melania. Are they reptilians? Is this just a Freemason show? I mean, a lot of people think that. So what if it is? As Christians, how are we supposed to treat people that are on different levels of waking up to all this deception? Because it seems like a lot of professing Christians have become strangely comfortable with regularly and publicly berating people, demeaning them, cutting them off, even bearing false witness against perfect strangers by accusing them of being shills and having evil motives when they can't possibly know that. I'm guilty of it. I mean, it's a constant temptation just not to blast people. It makes you feel good all over when you blast people. But I talk to a lot of people. I take polls. Most of the people listening to me don't believe any of the things that Trump is doing is taking us into some happy era of freedom and prosperity. Nobody's buying it. So if you're a truther, you don't believe anything good is happening that's real. You don't believe it's real at many different levels. I mean, you might believe good is happening, but you don't trust it in any way. And you're convinced, and you're probably right, that there is some gotcha, okay, that's being developed in all this. Just based on principle. You're not going to let out any hope in any way. Not going to happen. The truther has seen it all before. You've categorized it as a fake show, and you're unmoved. You're convinced that whatever good is taking place is just going to usher us into the New World Order, social credit score, Zionist, elite, gender-bending, reptilian, apocalyptic, democide, battle of Gog and Magog, right? That's most people that might be listening to me. And honestly, I'm right there with you. I mean, if I have a biblical worldview, you're sort of painted into a corner. You're forced to adopt a pessimistic worldview of what's coming if you're a Bible believer. Because you either believe you're coming into the tribulation or you're coming into the battle of Gog and Magog in Satan's little season. Neither of them have us living happier ever after. So I'm just attempting, as feeble as it may be, to try to suggest that maybe we don't lose our humanity or our Christ-likeness on the way. Hopefully God will give us grace and we can temper our correspondence with grace. If you name the name of the Lord, because it seems quite clear that Christian truthers have adopted a cancel culture. Trigger-happy response that is ungodly. Branding other truthers as Trump supporters if they show any appreciation for what's happening. And I'm not saying you've been sucked in and you drank the Kool-Aid if you're just acknowledging what's happening. I'm just saying that in the short term, things are finally going the way of righteousness in a country that was on the brink of being totally turned over to debauchery. And I can't help but rejoice out loud and unapologetically for that. But if you do, you'll be shamed, just like normies do. Called a Trump supporter, you'll be rebuked. You'll be told, how can you be so blind? Or we should have nothing to do with the deeds of darkness. And another thing I hear a lot is the idea that because Trump has sin in his life, we should reject him as the president. That's really idealistic and it's unrealistic. Where the only way that you'll be aligned with what's happening in the presidency is if he's a tongue-talking, spirit-filled, born-again believer that's blameless in all his ways. Really? I don't need my president to be a man of God, as long as he's getting the job done. Why would that be a criteria for you to align yourself with a duly elected president? I mean, I played the videos, the guys saying Jesus wants to be the Lord of your life. What do you want? Anyway, I understand the motivation if a Christian is motivated to make a post like that, because what happens to us, okay, as truthers is when you start to discover how evil and diabolical and pervasive the lies are that permeate every corner of society, and how so many people are getting hurt, a lot of us kind of go on a mission to wake people up. So we put on the war paint on our faces and we're like, not on my watch. Yes, duly elected. I do believe the election happened and that people voted and they tried to steal it, but they failed because so many people voted. So yes, I believe he was duly elected. What do you believe? Mr. Super Spider? If you don't believe he was duly elected, what do you believe? I'd be interested. Right. Carl says duly selected. Okay. Well, this is a difference of view, of worldview right here. So I don't believe that the central planners are all powerful, but this idea is that you do believe that. I believe that many past presidents have been selected, probably everything after Kennedy, but I don't believe they're all powerful. I see that they need our cooperation, like with the mask mandate. The mask mandate would only work if we cooperate. And they expend a lot of effort in mind controlling us into doing these things. So yes, I do believe he was elected by people taking action and voting. So the motivations behind people's posting things like this is actually a good motivation. It's compassion. Don't ever forget that. You're God's emissary when you're trying to wake people up. And we're wrestling not with flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and spiritual wickedness in high places. And also, I encourage people to remember that you are right and they are wrong, because they have all the power of all the 90% of the world that doesn't believe you're right behind them, but they are wrong. And sometimes we forget that. So Proverbs 8:13 says that the fear of the Lord is to hate evil. That's a powerful statement. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil, pride, arrogancy, and the evil way. Right. DJ says, I now believe that voting is consenting. I did think it didn't count, but I am learning more they need our consent. Satan needs that consent. Perhaps that is a perhaps, but that basically is the same model where the central planners are all powerful, and I don't believe they are. That sort of is the problem. So truthers, what happens to us is we wake up to the idea of really hating evil. Truthers are a little ticked off, as they should be. Normies are not ticked off. They're pursuing their happy lives. They're prioritizing the landscaping and remodeling and church and taking the kids to sporting events and raising kids. And those are noble, of course. And the truther can also be involved in all those things, especially family. But the normie sees them as mutually exclusive, where the truther does not. The truther is then forced to abandon the place that things that they hold in a hierarchy of ideals, right? You have to abandon what you now hold to be important in order to remain in rapport with your family. Like, I had to surrender the way that I felt our kids should be raised, because it changed when I became a truther. And the truther realizes that they have an obligation to raise their kids as activists. Like the little 13-year-old girl in Florida that got an award from Governor DeSantis because she had been suspended from school 12 times because she refused to wear a mask. And I remember I tried to push that idea in my family around that time, and I got eviscerated as a weirdo troublemaker from my spouse and children because they were in the matrix. And I was leaving the matrix. And people that leave the matrix look crazy to those that are still in the matrix. They had accepted the program. I was rejecting the program. And they weren't interested in fighting something they didn't think was there. So I, however, could no longer tolerate raising entitled, insatiable debutantes that are self-absorbed normie clones of the world-loving normie parent. The normie child, in my mind, was being raised in the matrix as a normie child, and I was being forced to encourage them to accept the program, or else. Everyone was unconscious of the program in my family except me. We would be doing landscaping on the Saturday morning, and overhead are crisscross lines, like 20 of them, going in all different directions. And I'm like, what are you guys going to need to know that this is not normal? Does the sky have to be on fire for you to wake up? I mean, look up there. And they would just be like, oh, Dad. And I'm like, this is barium salts and aluminum particulate and God knows what else raining down on us like bugs. No sale. Couldn't sell that one. So the truther wakes up in these environments with friends and family and tries to break the spell, but usually can't. And then chaos ensues in many cases. The family will maybe fracture to some degree, it will stay together. And the truther family members become a pariah. The truther becomes a pariah. They get isolated, and eventually they are given ultimatums in many cases. Some people figure out how to mark a path of coexistence, but there's a chasm between you. There's nobody I've talked to that doesn't have the chasm. The new truther parent sees their normie children on the same normie trajectory as their normie parent, but is powerless to do anything about it. And the normie family sees the truther parent as a threat. And so they circle the wagons against the poor truther parent that's leaving the matrix. And as things fall apart, many times the truther is filled with self-doubt, wondering if it's their fault and if they could have kept the family together. And what I can tell you after my journey and hundreds of interactions and conversations with divorced truthers, I get them 2 or 3 a week right now. Yeah, John, my spouse divorced me, my kids don't talk to me. And it goes downhill from there. 2 or 3 a week. So I can tell you with very big confidence, it's not you. Okay? Let me come back on the screen. It wasn't you. It's them. Take that into your heart and your soul. God has me here to validate your perceptions and spur you on. You are supposed to challenge people's worldview, but they're going to try to mark you as being dysfunctional and tell you you're obsessed to try to shut you up. But what you're doing is right. Because in a way, the normies are going to get us all killed if they don't snap out of it. So if there's an urgency and an obligation, and there's a self-preservation component. So you need to press the battle with them while we still have time. That's normal. That is noble. That is the correct response. Right? If someone's raping a woman in an alley, sir, you'd better stop what you're doing and go to her aid. So truthers experience a sense of frustration regarding people's ignorance of such incredibly important topics like NASA's lying to humanity. Not just NASA, all of the governments. And the Luciferian reign over us. And as a result, you feel it's your duty to challenge them. And truthers feel the same sense of duty within the truther community regarding Trump. But when I first read that post, if you're for Trump, you're for Satan, I felt like this is so out of order to make this kind of broad statement for a couple of reasons. The first is that Trump is an enigma. Basically, for someone that's supposedly evil, he's certainly accomplishing an enormous amount of good for all of humanity very quickly. Restoring freedom, restoring prosperity, restoring morality, promoting Jesus, for the love of heaven, as the president on a scale and a pace which is unimaginable. It's not like we got Kamala, right? Or the Democratic Party, which are known quantities. There are many questions around Trump and many blemishes on his soul, but the Trump-hating Christian truther, to me, seems more like rabid dogs with Trump derangement syndrome than discerning brothers and sisters that are trying to warn another brother or sister. What's undeniable is that this guy, whoever he is, at least in the short term, is saving this country from certain destruction. And it seems like so-called Christian truthers that are haters of this, just absolutely implacable, don't want to even admit that any of the things that he's doing are good, which tells me I'm on the right track. This is not a pro-Trump message. It's a pro-truth message. I'm not trying to convince anyone that Trump's a good guy. I've already stated my position. I'm saying that the Bible has much to say about how we treat people and staying in grace when we're contending with people. Let me make a few more examples. Here, I call these be nice scriptures. Matthew 5:7. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Be merciful, just as my Father is merciful. Romans 12:18. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. See, even if Kamala had gotten elected, I personally would not be comfortable going onto Facebook and posting a meme that says, if you're with Kamala, you're with Satan. Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. Problem is that when you have someone that is executing on this much good, I think it might be prudent to be careful because you don't know if there has been an intervention by God that nullifies everything that you are relying on to come to your conclusion or some other bizarre agenda. Are you absolutely certain that the angel of the Lord hasn't visited this guy and he was converted? Are you sure that hasn't happened? Just like Kim Clement prophesied, which would sweep aside pretty much all the objections that I've ever heard, because you get converted. His prophecy stated that the term would be different. His second term would be different than the first term. And in the second one, the prophecy said he would be a praying president with the Spirit of God. So one of my listeners suggested, well, isn't it possible that the central planners are going to bring in a short golden age of prosperity so that we would then have more to lose and will make more of us willing to fight against the camp of the saints? Yes, thank you. That's a great point. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That is a out of the box thinking kind of a narrative that could be driving what we're seeing. I'm just saying that something really strange is happening and nobody listening to me really knows what's going on. You only think you know. So it would be very biblical to couch your statements with some humility disclaimers, right? What if you found out that a delegation of ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel have finally come over from beyond the ice wall, right? I'm going to study this for us here. Terra Infinita. Could it be possible? They're coming from the outer lands in a mission to set humanity free in center Earth. Let me come back on the screen. Woo, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Whoops, I hit the wrong thing. There we go. And then Trump has partnered with these advanced civilizations that live beyond the ice wall to set humanity free, that many of the things that you point to that gives you so much certainty are just head fakes to throw off the central planners and the Khazarians that have ruled over us for centuries. What if you found out that the delegation had come here to set you free and you were fighting against them with your little theories? Wouldn't that be embarrassing? What if you found out that the Ingersoll Lockwood books from the early 19th century were actually real and the marvelous adventures of Baron Trump are the proof that Trump has time travel technology that he got from old Uncle John Trump, who was tasked with poring over Tesla's research? There was a whole bunch of his cases that were missing. And now Trump is using time travel knowledge to checkmate the bad guys. And he actually is a good actor to overthrow the evil system that has kept humanity as a slave for centuries. There's quite a bit of evidence that that narrative is actually feasible. Just because Trump has ties to the Kabbalists doesn't mean he is one now. I studied Eckankar, the ancient science of soul travel, before I got born again. What if Trump is a globalist, but he's not a nihilistic anti-human globalist, like the White Dragons said? They're globalists, but they're not nihilistic anti-human globalists. And Benjamin Fulford said they've put out hits on the Rockefeller, Bush, Obama, Clinton dynasties. Told them, if you don't stop trying to kill 90% of the population, we know where you live. What if you're just looking at a turf war and Trump doesn't care if you're rich as long as he's richer? Or maybe the white hat Q Trump and the military narrative is actually true, but it's way more bizarre than you could have ever imagined. And while you're all worked up about how Trump is a Zionist that is going to use the Noahide laws to chop your head off with the 10,000 guillotines and the coffins in Georgia, he's actually partnered with the long game secret military operation that's finally going to war with the reptilian infestation in our society. So what you're actually watching is a battle between humans and reptilians that have partnered with corrupt humans, just like you saw in the movie They Live. Come on, man, this is glorious. All of Trump's missteps, his double dealings, his foul-mouthed sexual perversions, His questionable alliances and decisions are part of a guy that was the only one that God could possibly use to bring down the reptilians. God uses flawed, sinful people, I don't know if you're aware of that, to get the job done. He's using me. And if God's using you, you can look in the mirror and marvel at how God could possibly use the likes of you old dusty dog. Kevin Knight, you old wiggly worm. You know what you're like, you old bucket of bolts. But then you're out there anyway, despite yourself, you're praying for people, and the person gets healed, and you're as shocked as they are that it worked. Happens to me. So I see your conspiracy theories, and I raised you 6 bigger ones. And my conspiracy theories are bigger than yours. That's right. Pardon the pun, but I trump your Trump conspiracies with 6 bigger Trump conspiracies that would crush and roll over your lesser conspiracies and prove you wrong. Ha! My conspiracies will explain why he is actually a good actor and with good motives. What do you think of that? Shelley? DJ? I am a bigger, more powerful conspiracy theorist than you are. My conspiracies are way more conspiratorial. And I stand on the mountaintop of conspiracy theory knowledge, ruling over the entire community. Well, I don't know what will happen. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. As the undisputed leader in attaining conspiracy theory insights, I shall not be contradicted in any way because of my vast knowledge and understanding of all mysteries. I and I alone have access to the Akashic records, and I am able to discern exactly what motivations of every human being are after only listening to them speak one sentence. I also can predict everything that anyone will do in the future with 100% accuracy. Everyone in the truther community should recognize my vast superiority over all other truthers and immediately bow to my opinions and my conclusions, or else I will assign them to the 7th circle of hell and will disfellowship them immediately. I am the Judge Dredd of the kingdom of heaven. God has appointed me to embarrass, ridicule, and accuse anyone that disagrees with me, and I believe the more accusatory and harsh I am, the more it proves how devout and learned I am. God has appointed me to elevate being rude and impolite to a virtue, and my conscience doesn't bother me one bit. No, if anyone disagrees with me, I will immediately issue a scathing rebuke without any attempt to understand what the other person is trying to say, because what it looks like to me not to be that way is uncompromising. I'm like the Pope. I'm infallible, and all that I've come to decide is true. The moment someone disagrees with me, I will publicly brand them as a shill, even though I have no evidence that they are knowingly lying to everyone. In fact, the prophecy in Revelations that asks who can make war with him actually applies to me. My grasp of the mysteries of the universe is unmatched. Undoubtedly, there will be statues erected in my honor, and my many books will be written that will tell the tale of a man who was born to humble accommodations in a small suburban town, only to rise to patriarchal status to change the course of history. Women all over the world will name their children after me. And there will be no corner of the flat earth that you can travel to that will not know the story of John Kirwin, the greatest conspiracy theorist of all time. And then the first international holiday will be enacted to honor my unmatched command of all that is and will be. And all the countries of the flat stationary earth will be in agreement. It will be called International John Kirwin Day. Every business will agree to close during this holiday and give all their employees a full day's pay, even though they aren't working, to show their appreciation for what I have done for humanity. Each employee will receive a full-size standing cutout billboard of me, so that every family could take me home and place me in a prominent place in their living room so that their children can learn about me and follow in my footsteps. If I suggest that something in the Bible has changed because of the Mandela effect, and anyone disagrees with me because they have a different memory, I will publicly break fellowship with them immediately and then ban them from my channel, because I and I alone am the arbitrator of what is and isn't a Mandela effect. If I indicate that something is a conspiracy theory, then it is to be immediately accepted by the entire truther community as fact, and everyone should agree with me immediately, or they will receive a good tongue lashing, because we're not to have anything to do with the deeds of darkness, but rather to expose them. So, of course, I'm joking. Joking. Okay? It's tongue in cheek. It's the type of thinking that seems to be lurking, though, in the deep recesses of some people's minds, because it's coming out in their responses. Matthew 15:16 tells us what comes out of the mouth is what defiles a man. And so you couldn't say what I just said and decide to break fellowship with people if you find out that they have a different memory of the Bible than you do, unless you are puffed up with pride over how much knowledge you have. 1 Corinthians 8. Now, concerning food offered to idols, we know that all of us possess knowledge. This knowledge puffs up. We're all just groping through this realm trying to figure out what's coming. So a lot of people are knowledgeable about what they're talking about, but there doesn't seem to be grace in the posts of many so-called Christian truthers, because they think that if they don't issue their warning as a rebuke, then they're in compromise. Romans talks about this. Brethren, my heart's desire and prayer to God for Israel is that they may be saved. For I bear them witness that they have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge. And Jesus reminded the Pharisees, you tithe mint and cumin, but you've forgotten the weightier matters. So I know that most people believe that all the good that Trump's doing is just a ruse to lure us into complacency. But aren't you glad that he hasn't come out of the gate starting to round us up as conservatives and increase censorship, but instead he's eliminating all of that? Doesn't that make you happy? Doesn't that make you happy? Okay, well then, if your answer is yes, then my question is, then aren't you a Trump supporter? Aren't you glad that there's been $7 trillion in investments already in the first 60 days, and that companies are flooding back into the U.S. to build factories? There's been 90,000 factories that have closed since NAFTA started. And that his tariffs will bring in 10 times that and allow him to eliminate income tax, which, by the way, is what the Nasera thing said would happen, which when I looked at 6 years ago looked absolutely ridiculous. And all the other things that Nasera promised. So just to put a period on this, I went at this not to convince people that Trump's a good player, but to convince people that we're supposed to operate, that there's enough there that it's not crazy to have that belief. And people are going to be at all different levels of belief. And Galatians 6, verse 1, reminds you of your rule of engagement. Brothers, if someone's caught in a trespass, if they think Trump's a good guy, you who are spiritual should restore him with a spirit of gentleness. That's all. That's all I wanted. All that to say that right there. But in order to do that, I had to try to show the incredible amount of evidence right now that's not going to happen, that's happening, that the Trump show is a force for good and freedom and prosperity. And that if you have a different belief, that's fine. As I said, I'm there with you. But if you come across other people that have a different view, you who are spiritual should restore him, contend with them with a spirit of gentleness, because it warns you. But watch yourself, or as you also may be tempted, carry one another's burdens, and in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Now, I don't know how many times I made it clear that I'm not a Trump supporter. I guarantee you I'll get at least 4 or 5 posts rebuking me for being a Trump supporter. Because what does that really mean if you're a Trump supporter? Well, I think it means a lot of things. I think one thing it means is that you believe that there's no hidden agenda. That's pretty much what it means in the minds of people that don't support Trump. They view anybody that can't conclude that there's a hidden agenda as being extremely naive. Okay, and let's just say you're correct, but you can be incorrect in how you interact with people based on that belief if you don't observe Galatians 6. You who are spiritual should restore him with a spirit of gentleness. Praise the Lord. It's a really good point Jason brings up. Like, I'm pro-American, but I don't trust the left or the right. Or even beyond that, Jason, like, where do my ideals fall? Like in the hierarchy of ideals. Okay, because you got my allegiance to Christ, the kingdom of heaven, and the work of the ministry. And then I have this other part of me, which is patriotic, or I don't live in North Korea. Thank you. I'm really glad that my country isn't like North Korea. Aren't you? Well, those freedoms, as corrupt as the system is, right? It's all based on Freemasonry from the beginning and all, but it's still, we're the most free, prosperous place to live that I've ever seen. I mean, people always want to come here. So there's a part of me that wants to contend for that freedom. When the righteous rule, the people rejoice. A lot of Christians take the I don't get involved position, which is fine. And God has many paths for many people. All I'm saying is if somebody does feel called to politics, local, state, or international or national, then that's not a black mark on their soul, because it's very biblical. I showed you Daniel 2. God sets up and takes down kings. Era says, John, I like when you play the current event clips. Maybe you could create a separate channel for it. Yeah, I pretty much have to do that because if I go into that too much, I risk getting shut off on YouTube. Getting copyright hits and then hitting topics that the central planners are no bueno with. But I do, like, when we do the Noahide laws talk, it's only going to be on Rumble. So we can blast away, Zionism and all that stuff. I'm going to do that with Mark because that's his jam. All right. So JC, Seed of Life. You really prepared this, John? John? That's a question. You really prepared this, John? Wait, I don't understand that. Restate that so I can understand what you're saying, because that's interesting. All right, people, let me hear from you in the chat. Go ahead, fire away. Fire away. Mark is great. I totally agree, Susie. I totally agree. Mark is great. He wasn't able to join me tonight. He has a life. JC says, stop it, John. The whole world will start following. All right. I still don't understand what you're saying. Keep trying, though. I don't understand that statement or the last one. You'll have to be more articulate. I'm not sure what that means either. So that's 3 posts in a row. We don't understand what JC, Seed of Faith. Maybe somebody else does. All right. So fire away. I mean, go ahead. Trish. Trish. Let me make sure I got your phone number. I got to call you. Trish. Yes. All right. I'm going to call you tomorrow. Will you be around? Yep, JC's got 4 posts now that don't make any sense. So JC, your stock is plummeting. You've got the floor, but unfortunately, you're going to have to talk in full sentences if we're going to be able to respond to you. So I neglected to put listener posts together on slides. I'm sorry. I really meant to do that. I meant to do it, Charlene. All right. Well, you guys have anything to say? Say it to my face. That's what Wanda Portlock said to me when I was in high school. Okay, so truth be told, John, I think it was referring to the preparing the declaration spoof you read. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure how that'll be received, but I took a shot at it. Icebergs off of New York City? Really, Susie? Get out of here. Really? There's icebergs off the coast of New York City. Let me see. Icebergs off the coast of NYC. No. During Titanic. There's a Mandela effect around the Titanic that it wasn't actually the Titanic that sank. I mean, it's not necessarily a Mandela effect, but There was a sister ship that they I forget the whole story, but it was the sister ship that sank, not the Titanic. But it could have been just a hidden thing, not a Mandela effect. DJ says, I'm just tapping my toe in this little season. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this right here, Terra Infinita. I mean, if this is true and there's like 50 different worlds and the Earth is actually on this map is pictured in the center, I don't know how I would reconcile my doctrine with the fact that there's all these different races and species of aliens. Just all the alien stuff is actually real, and they're just outside the ice wall. They're not coming from intergalactically. They're coming from the other side. But just the fact that they exist, the Bible is silent about any other worlds beyond the ice wall. And so you wouldn't have any Bible to basically process that if it was true. So I haven't even read this, but from what I understand here, the Terra Infinita, the story of a navigator, William Morris, and his daughter Helen, the ancestral knowledge of the lands beyond Antarctica and the other worlds that surround us. So apparently they came over from the outer lands, and that's how we got this information. And you have Admiral Byrd, who I know everybody says he's a Freemason, but how do you know that? And secondly, who cares? Doesn't mean he's telling a lie necessarily. You got his diary, which is bizarre. It tells about how his plane, there was 2 UFOs that came up next to his plane, and they took control over his plane so they couldn't steer anymore. And then it took them down into center Earth and landed. And then they went into this crystal building and then down this elevator and talked to the administrator. That's from his diary. And these realms are actually in another dimension. So the planes, when they flew, there was about 3 or 4 planes that they flew over the ice wall, and then they disappeared in their sight. They like literally disappeared, but they were still in radio contact for a little while until they finally faded. And then they sent one more plane in to try to find them, and the same thing happened with them. So these realms are not just farther away, they're possibly in other vibe. There is another vibe. So just imagine how wiggy your world could, your life could be. But instead, you have this mundane prison planet existence where you have to work all the time and then pay 30% to these people or they'll put you in a cage. Yeah, DJ says, meanwhile, back in my little world, my neighbor had a shootout with the cops right in front of my, oh my gosh. She was trying suicide by cops. She survived, however, and is going to prison. Wow. Wow, that's crazy. That is so crazy. Ann Gaylor says, I have an ancient map with Magog in current Russia. Really? That's crazy. It's crazy over here. Well, I'm glad they didn't get you, DJ. You escaped that whole scenario, huh? That's awful. All right, JC gave us a full sentence. Awesome. He says, John, there are things that just aren't compatible. Well, can you accept that? I don't know. So that's another question that I don't understand. What things aren't compatible? You'd have to clarify that because I have no idea what you're talking about. I want to. I would like to. All right. Well, anybody have any questions or comments or anything? I'm not looking for compliments. I'm just looking for some back and forth. What's going to happen next? All right. Well, if you all are going to be just sitting there, I'm going to just go eat something. All of you people. I don't know. I'm sure I'll hear about this one. I'm going to hear about this one. Oh, my goodness. Prayer time. I need a return to health, please. All right. Let's believe God for people's healing. Truth be told, if you have a prayer request, post it. Because the Spirit of the Lord is present to heal. And the Lord told me, I want you to believe me for miracles. And so obedience, miracles follow obedience. I mean, God is just wanting to break out. And he wants to take us up to the next level. Take us up to the next level. Okay, JC, if you've got prayer requests, go ahead and post them in the chat while I'm just trying to bridge the gap with JC. All right, so JC is referring to the narcissistic talk that I made. And the first question was, are there things that just aren't compatible? Can you accept that? And then I asked, well, what does that mean? And you said the narcissistic talk. So are there things in the narcissistic talk that are just not compatible? I still don't understand your question. I'm not trying to be difficult. I am trying to understand you. Does anybody else understand what JC is trying to ask me? Because I don't. Anne says, we're afraid to argue with you now, John. No, you shouldn't be. Go ahead and try it. See what happens. I would certainly have to be nice after that, right? Yeah, JC, I know you're referring to my narcissistic talk, but what you got to put it all in one post, and then I maybe will understand what you're asking me. Yes, I said that what I had said when I was talking like that was tongue in cheek. It was a joke. I don't believe I'm like the king of the Christian truther community with all knowledge. But my point was that seems to be how people interact. They have the certainty that they can't possibly have. And then they post things like, if you are with Trump, you're with Satan. So I listed all these things that the Trump show is doing that are awesome. And I'm like, I don't reconcile that. Like the fact that I'm happy that they're getting porno out of the libraries as being with Satan. Right? I mean, I'm just talking out loud here, just spitballing. Gmoss says, John, you are so far from narcissistic. I'm so grateful for your platform. His ways are not our ways. None of us know anything for sure. Thank you. Oh, thank you. You just remember Galatians chapter 6. Gentle. I mean, if I'm delivering this, I'm being forceful in my delivery about not berating people. It's not hypocrisy. Okay, it's sort of different if you're bringing the message out about this topic, driving it home, right? So as far as us interacting with people, I don't really know what the answer is to this, except what I shared with you. Like my story, I guess the best example is when I was first saved and I would be talking to people who had a different view, and I would end up getting in the flesh. That's what the Bible calls it. I was getting in the flesh and then starting to argue with them and getting to the point where we walked away from each other, mad at each other. And I remember being like, well, that's not going to work. Right? Because if you have a heart for people, you have to try to stay in rapport with them, especially if they're not saved. You're trying to win them to the Lord. So you have to choose how far you're going to press somebody before you stop, so you don't get into an argument. Oh, help me, God. Help me, God. All right. I love you guys. I'm going to run and grab something to eat, but I was glad to be here tonight. You guys are my sanity, and this is what I do. And I'm very grateful for what God is doing here, and it's going to bring us into some outreach to the church. Sure to visit alteredbible.com. Check out the outreach there. And if you'd like to join me in that journey in some capacity, I need folks that are adept at research or social media marketing, bookkeeping. You want to be involved in reaching out. I mean, you want to get involved. Just hit me up. Email is pleasewakeuporelse@gmail.com. Thank you. Thank you, truth be told. And we're going to be doing more and more and more. We're going to just press the battle, man. We're going to go out into the realm and stir it up, because that's what God told me to do. All right. Blessings. See you guys soon. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. God bless.